Welcome back to Management Made Easy. We've been talking about the complexity of human nature because interpersonal relationships are important precisely because people are complex. And we say that people are complex because we still don't fully understand them, and we lack a deep understanding of ourselves. In the last lesson, we discussed how genetics influence human behavior, and honestly, this can lead to a deterministic misunderstanding, where one might believe that genes decide everything. A few days ago, I taught a management class where a genetic expert gave a lecture before I started teaching. According to this expert, it seemed like knowing your genes could tell you exactly when you die, which left everyone feeling down. But in my view, there's no need to believe in such deterministic ideas. Today, I want to talk about how the power of the environment and rationality is incredibly powerful, and how it can make a huge impact in managing human behavior. This is also the reason why I'm teaching you the wisdom of management. The power of rationality is truly remarkable, and I ask you not to doubt it. Let me give you some evidence. There's a field called epigenetics, and today's recommended reading is a book about recent findings in this field. In the past decade, the results from research in this area have been incredibly inspiring. Scientists in this field study identical twins. Why twins? Because their genes are completely identical, and they share the same prenatal environment. However, after birth, differences begin to emerge, and as they age and experience different environments, these differences become even more pronounced. Research on identical twins, especially that by Professor Li Hongban from China, is among the best. If you're interested, you can find his papers. But these scientific findings do not contradict what I mentioned in the previous lesson. So, what should our attitude be towards this? First, we must make use of modern scientific findings to better understand the deep-rooted causes of human behavior and the underlying mechanisms. At the same time, we should not rush to conclusions based solely on genetic or physiological research. Instead, we should focus on how to use these findings effectively to manage environments and help people maximize their potential. In conclusion, we must have a deep belief in the power of rationality. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about managing panic as an example to illustrate the power of rationality. Specifically, how rationality can be injected into the situation to control our natural reactions. The other day, it was graduation season, and I had a student who is usually quite talkative. However, during her defense, she suddenly became so nervous she couldn't speak. I took her outside for a chat, and I told her, "It's normal to be nervous. Don't worry, even I get nervous." During the May 18th Get Knowledge Release event, the audience might not have noticed, but I was nervous inside. I've seen many cases of people getting nervous. Some feel panicked when presenting to important clients. Others feel nervous talking to senior leaders. And some just panic when facing crucial tasks. So why does this happen? This is a natural bodily response. Everyone experiences panic at some point. But what you may not know is that during panic, your body undergoes changes. There's a transmission mechanism here. First, you encounter a stressful situation. Second, this situation triggers a change in your awareness system, and your body starts releasing a large amount of norepinephrine. Third, when norepinephrine is released excessively, it leads to physiological changes, which manifest as panic. Remember this logic. There are three key terms: situation, awareness, and panic. The situation triggers your awareness, which causes changes in your endocrine system, and these changes are expressed in your behavior as panic. It's a transmission process. So how do you manage panic? How do you control this transmission process? The easiest way to think about it is to manage your awareness. Some people, when panicking, try to tell themselves, "Don't panic," but the more they say it, the worse it gets. Sometimes, people around them try to comfort them, but this often has the opposite effect and makes them more anxious. Why? Because people don't understand the mechanism of awareness and fail to effectively control it. As I mentioned earlier, People panic because their body is releasing too much norepinephrine. But don't think this substance is a bad thing. In critical moments, it can save lives. For instance, if you suddenly see a car rushing towards you on the street, your natural reaction is to run. Before you even have time to think, the norepinephrine in your brain has already started to take effect. It speeds up your heartbeat and gets your body ready to sprint. Once you know where to run, you can take off immediately. So, norepinephrine can actually be a good thing. When released in the right amounts, it stimulates the brain and puts us in a high alert state, which can improve our work efficiency. Of course, if norepinephrine is secreted excessively, it can lead to panic, because there is a part of our brain, like computer memory, and when there's too much norepinephrine, the efficiency of this memory decreases. The decrease in memory efficiency manifests as forgetting what you were going to say, or being unable to perform necessary actions. This is what panic looks like. So, when you try to calm yourself down, or when others try to comfort you, if done incorrectly, it can actually cause more norepinephrine to be secreted, which leads to a mental freeze. This mental freeze is when your mind goes completely blank. Therefore, managing panic is essentially about learning to control the secretion of norepinephrine by managing the situation and your awareness. One of the most direct methods to do this is deep breathing. When you take deep breaths, a certain nerve becomes very active, which helps suppress the effects of norepinephrine. However, this is just an emergency measure, and there are many times when it's not convenient to use, because after all, in front of an audience or in front of a boss, you might feel uncomfortable taking deep breaths. Therefore, it's better to use other methods. Next, I will teach you two methods. One is for immediate relief, and the other is for addressing the root cause. Many of the 6 tricks or 8 tips on the market to manage panic are methods for immediate relief. But even short-term methods can be helpful, and I recommend you learn them because they can help change the situation and your awareness. My editor told me that when he gets nervous, he likes to squeeze his fingers, because it changes the situation by introducing a feeling of pressure and discomfort, which can dilute the original feelings and alter the neurochemical environment. It's said that even Luciano Pavarotti, before every performance, felt nervous. As one of the world's top 3 tenors, his audience mostly wanted to hear whether he could hit those high notes. If he could, the performance would be considered a success. But Pavarotti himself was concerned about whether he could hit those notes, so he would get nervous. His method for dealing with this nervousness, which he developed over years of performing, was that before he went on stage, he had to see a nail. Once he saw that nail, he would feel more at ease, and then he could perform his magnificent high note. You see, even famous people get nervous, but each person deals with it differently, so you can't just copy others. The 6 tips or 8 tricks might not work for you. You need to find what works for you. For example, some people reduce their nervousness by not eating, using hunger to ease their tension. Others might use the feeling of holding in their urine to reduce their anxiety. Ultimately, all these methods use emotional injection to change the environment created by awareness. Understanding this basic logic might inspire you and help you find your own effective methods. However, it's important to note that these methods are for immediate relief. Addressing the root cause requires the power of rationality. Now let me share with you a method of managing panic using rational injection. Think carefully. Why do you panic? Fundamentally, it's because you have an expectation about the outcome of a situation. In other words, you set a standard for yourself in advance. The reason you panic is that you worry your performance or the result will not meet your expectations, and you fear the situation will get out of control and your hopes will be dashed. So when you anticipate that you might panic, I suggest you first think about 2 things. Is the goal you set for yourself appropriate? Have you prepared enough to achieve that goal? After asking yourself these 2 questions, you will naturally consider 2 possibilities. One is that you have prepared thoroughly, and there's no reason to panic because you've got it under control. For example, when I took my student outside to talk, I helped her realize that with her research at that level, there was no reason to be nervous. The other possibility is that, after rational analysis, you realize you're not fully prepared, or you can't completely control the situation. If that's the case, just let it go. As Zhao Benshin said, let it be. Once you adopt this mindset, you won't panic, and in fact, you might even perform better. In summary, with rational injection and the addition of emotional injection techniques, like deep breathing, you might be able to overcome your nervousness. Even if your genes tend to secrete more norepinephrine, with these methods, you might find that you're not as panicked. This is the power of management. To summarize, this lesson covered two things. First, we should be good at using both rational and emotional injections to control the situation and influence our awareness, so that we no longer panic. That's panic management. But more importantly, as we discussed at the beginning, human understanding of ourselves is becoming clearer, and there have been many new scientific discoveries. We need to be good at integrating these new discoveries with the wisdom of management to apply traditional management knowledge better in light of new insights. These lessons are the foundation of self-management, and self-management is the prerequisite for all effective management. This is Management Made Easy. See you in the next class.